Today is another day, and we are going to discuss another topic, that is excretion, and we are going to discuss excretion in animals, mainly human, and we are going to discuss excretion in plants as well. So let's start. So excretion is the process by which living organisms remove metabolic waste substances from their bodies. Metabolic waste, these are waste that are being generated as a result of the chemical or biological processes that are occurring within the cells. Now, there is a difference between excretion and defecation. In defecation, the food we take in after they have been digested to absorbable particles, the useful substances that the body needs will be absorbed into the bloodstream. Whatever remains in there that is not being absorbed into the bloodstream, we take them through the anus. So for them, they have not been used by the body, although they are waste, but they are not metabolic waste. And for them, we remove them through the anus. In that case, refers to that process as defecation or egestion, egestion. So let's talk about egestion. Egestion is the removal of undigested food particles through the anus. Just like I said, the food that are being digested into absorbable particles, they will be absorbed into the bloodstream. Whatever remains in there after absorption has occurred will be taken out through the anus, and we call that process as egestion. So let's talk about the importance of excretion. One, it removes metabolic waste products. Then two, it regulates water balance, which we have to talk about it in detail later. Three, it regulates the pH of body fluids. That one also we have to talk about it later. And it regulates body temperature. All of these four important that I have named, we have to discuss them in detail later, how it occurs. Next on our slide is the excretory system in organisms. So in this case, we just have to name the organism and their excretory organ, nothing more than that. So we start with protozoan. Example, we have amoeba, paramecium, iglena, etc. They use their contractile vacuole for excretion. And we have annelid like earthworm. They use nephridia for excretion. Next we have is flatworms. Flatworms, example like tapeworm, they are flame cells for excretion. And we have insects. Insects, they use what we call malphigian tubules for excretion. And lastly, we have crustacean that they uses their green glands for excretion. Now let's talk about the excretion in humans, and we are going to start with the four main excretory organs that we have in human. One is the lungs that excrete carbon dioxide and water vapor. Next is the liver that excretes what we call bile juice. Next is the skin that excretes what we call sweat, and sweat, it consists of water, salt and urea. Lastly, we have is the kidney that excretes what we call urine, and urine consists of water, salt, urea, creatinine, uric acid, etc. So as we have here on this slide here, these are the excretory organs. Maybe you will be given these organs to identify them. So this one here is the lungs, and here we have the kidney, here, and we have the liver, and we have the skin. In case you will be asked to identify the excretory organ in a diagram that will be given to you. The main excretory organ of humans are the kidneys. We have two kidneys. We have one on the left and one on the right. And the kidney, it resembles a bean-shaped structure. It is reddish brown in color. The kidney is located at the upper posterior part of the abdomen. You can find the kidney at the upper posterior part of the abdomen on either side of the spine. That means the spinal cord. So the right kidney is slightly lower than the left kidney because of the liver. The liver occupies much of the space of the right upper part of the abdomen, making the right kidney to be slightly lower than the left kidney. On this slide here, at the far right hand corner of the screen, we have a diagram of the urinary system. So in here we have the right kidney, we have the left kidney that filters the blood to form urine. And we have the right artery that has to come with oxygenated blood, which is unfiltered, into the kidney. And we have the renal vein that has to take away the oxygenated blood that is being filtered or that is being purified, which has to carry that blood to the heart so that the heart can pump it to the lungs for it to be oxygenated, from the lungs back to the heart so that the heart will pump it to all parts of the body, so that all parts of the body can receive oxygenated blood that is being purified or filtered by the heart. We also have ureter. The ureter, it carries urine from the kidney into the bladder. There is a difference between ureter and urethra. The urethra, it carries urine from the bladder to the outside of the body, while ureter, it carries urine from the kidney to the bladder. And we have the bladder, that is a sac-like structure that temporarily stores urine. The ureter and urethra, since we have talked about urinary system, and it was said by me that the kidney is the main excretory organ of humans. Now let's try to study the internal structure of the kidney. The kidney, it consists of two parts. We have the outer cortex, also called the cortex, and we have the inner medulla, also called the medulla. The medulla, it has a pyramid shape that opens into the pelvis. As you can see on this slide here, this one is the cortex. That's why we call it the outer cortex. It is the one surrounding the kidney. But there is a layer here, the outermost part of it here, it is called capsule, which is not labeled in this slide. So the capsule, it is the outermost part of the kidney. It provides protection for the kidney, just like any other outer part. Just below the capsule, we have the cortex. And next we have is the medulla. The medulla, it is having a pyramid shape. And this medulla here, it opens into the pelvis. It has a passage through which it has to follow for it to get into the pelvis, we have this part here which we call the minor calyx. These minor calyx here, they open into the major calyx. The major calyx open into the pelvis. This pelvis, it is connected to the ureter. It is the ureter that has to carry the urine to the bladder. The renal artery, as I described it before, it carries blood into the kidney. As I described it before, the blood that is being carried into the kidney, it is oxygenated but unfiltered. While the renal artery, it carries away blood from the kidney, and that blood is deoxygenated but it is being filtered or purified. We know the main function of the kidney is to filter blood in order to form urine. In that process, it maintains osmotic balance in the body. That means it helps to regulate blood water level in the kidney. To the kidneys, they maintain acid-base balance in the body. That means they help to regulate the acidity or the alkalinity of the blood. Lastly, it produces erythropoietin. Erythropoietin, it is a hormone that is being transported into the bone marrow cells and stimulate the bone marrow cells to produce more blood. Blood that is coming into the kidney, by right, they're supposed to come with high force and high pressure. If that one is being reduced, what will happen? The kidney will secrete erythropoietin, and that erythropoietin will go into the bone marrow cells, stimulate the bone marrow cells to produce more blood, so that we will have high blood pressure that has to come to the kidney in order for the kidney to function effectively. Now let's talk about how urine is being formed. The formation of urine, it occurs in the nephrons. The basic unit of kidney is called nephron. And I said the formation of urine, it involves three processes. One is ultrafiltration. Two is selective reabsorption. And the third one, that is the last one, is tubular secretion. We have to talk about all of these processes, how they occur. But before we talk about it, let's try to describe the structure of a nephron. Now, the nephron is having afferent artery that has to come with the blood into the nephron. And we have efferent artery that has to carry the blood away from the nephron. And the nephron is having a cup-like structure. In that cup-like structure, we have a network of blood vessels called glomerulus. Together they form what we call the renal corpuscle or Malpighian corpuscle. Just after the Malpighian tubi, we have the proximal convoluted tubi. So the convoluted tubi close to the Malpighian corpuscle is what we call proximal convoluted tubi, as proximal means close. And we have distal convoluted tubi. Distal means far away. The tubi far away from the Malpighian corpuscle is what we call distal convoluted tubi. As I said, convoluted means it is curved, as you can see it, and tubi means it has an hole in it. And we have a structure in between the proximal convoluted tubi and the distal convoluted tubi called Henle's loop. And this Henle's loop is a name of somebody. So even if you are writing it in a sentence, you have to capitalize it. And also Bowman's capsule. The Bowman is a name of somebody. So if you are going to name this capsule in relation to somebody, you have to name it as Bowman's capsule. That's why they are having an apostrophe. And I said the Bowman's capsule and the Henley's loop. If you are going to write it in a sentence, you have to capitalize it. And lastly, we have the collecting dot. We have approximately 1.2 million nephrons in each of these kidney that we are having. All of these nephrons, when they filter the blood in order to form urine, they empty it into the collecting dot. All of these branch here, these are nephrons that has to come and attach to it. But in this diagram here, we just have one nephron that is being connected to this collecting dot, but we have many of them that are supposed to be connected to this collecting dot. As I said, we have three processes involved in the formation of urine. Let's start with the first one, that is the ultrafiltration. The ultrafiltration, it occurs in the glomerulus as blood flows with high pressure, which causes smaller molecules to pass through the pore of the glomerulus into the Bowman's capsule. Mind you, plasma protein and blood cells will not pass through the glomerulus into the Bowman's capsule because they are too large to pass through that pore. All smaller substances, whether they are useful or not, they will pass through that pore into the Bowman's capsule. The blood coming into the glomerulus, it is coming with high pressure, it is coming with high force. That force will cause all smaller molecules to pass through that pore into the Bowman's capsule. Whether they are useful to the body or not, they will pass through that pore. So both useful and unuseful substances are being passed into the Bowman's capsule. Plasma protein or protein and blood cells will not pass through that pore because they are too large to pass through that pore. So in the urine, if you can see protein or blood cells, it indicates something that is happening in the body. So as we have it here on this diagram here, we have the blood flow that is coming through the afferent artery into the glomerulus. In this glomerulus here, it is having a pore in it. That means it is having an hole, and it is through that holes that those smaller molecules will force their way into the Bowman's capsule. Larger particles like proteins and blood vessels will not pass through it because they are too large to pass through it. From the Bowman's capsule, the filtrate will move into the proximal convoluted tubule. Number two is the selective reabsorption. It occurs in the proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, and distal convoluted tubule. As I told you, smaller molecules, whether useful or unuseful to the body, they will pass through that pore of the glomerulus into the Bowman's capsule. In the Bowman's capsule, they will be transported into proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, and distal convoluted tubule before they get into the collecting dot. So before getting to the collecting dot, useful substances which are needed by the body, such as glucose, amino acid, Some salts, excess water, are reabsorbed into the blood. So these substances which are useful to the body, which was filtered through the glomerulus, will move back into the blood as the body cannot afford to lose them. As you can see here on this diagram here, as the filtrate is moving, number 2 here, you can see the arrow moving from the tube into the blood vessel. So all of those useful substances which are needed by the body will move from the tube into the blood vessel. It is selective, that means not all substances will be allowed to pass from the tube of the nephron into the blood vessel. Only useful substances, substances that are needed by the body, will be allowed to pass. Substances that are not needed by the body, example urea, uric acid, creatine, will not be allowed to pass into the blood vessels. And number 3, we have tubular secretion. In here, some waste which we are not filtered into the glomerulus, they refuse to be filtered and they have no use to the body and they remain in the blood. They want to enjoy a free ride. What will happen? They will be secreted from the blood vessel directly into the tube of the nephron. As you can see here on this slide, we have number 3 here. You can see the arrow pointing from the blood vessel back into the tube. So all unuseful substances like urea, uric acid, some hormones will be filtered from the blood into the tube of the nephron. At the end of these 3 processes, the final product will form what we call urine. Urine, it consists of water, salt or electrolyte, urea, uric acid and creatinine. Next on our slide is the role of ADH, antidiuretic hormone, in the regulation of blood water level. So what will happen when the blood water level becomes low? What will happen when the blood water level becomes high? So this antidiuretic hormone, as we have on this diagram here on this slide, headed as osmotic osmosis, that means the regulation of blood water level in the body. We have here low. So when the blood water level becomes low, a lot of antidiuretic hormone will be secreted by the pituitary gland and it will be transported into distal convoluted tube and collecting duct. What will happen? It will make the wall of the collecting duct and distal convoluted tube more permeable to water, so that water will move from the tube of the nephron into the blood vessels and the blood water level will increase again to normal. As more water is being absorbed from the collecting duct and distal convoluted tube into the blood vessel, the output of the urine will reduce. That means the volume of the urine will reduce as we have it here, and the urine that will be secreted will be concentrated. That means it has just a little amount of water and more of solute. On the other side here, we have high blood water level. When the blood water level becomes high, less of antidiuretic hormone will be secreted and it will be transported into the collecting duct or distal convoluted tube. In there, it will make the wall of the collecting duct and distal convoluted to be less permeable to water, so that less amount of water will move from the tubi of the nephron into the blood vessel. So in that case, the urine that has to be released will be in high volume and it will be diluted. Diluted because we will have a more amount of water in the urine and less amount of solute. And the blood water level will become normal again. So that is how the kidney helps to regulate the blood water level. But mind you, there is one part I almost forgot to name, that is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus, it is the one that will instruct the posterior part of the pituitary gland to secrete the antidiuretic hormone, whether in high quantity or in less quantity. So our internal environment is being constantly maintained irrespective of the changes that has to occur in our surrounding. For example, our body temperature, it is not constantly changing as the environmental temperature is changing. As we have in reptile, they have variable body temperature. As we have in amphibians, they have variable body temperature. As we have in Pisces, they have variable body temperature. And we need to maintain the blood water level. We also need to maintain the pH balance of the blood. So the maintenance of the constant internal environment of the body is what we call homeostasis. You will be asked to define what is homeostasis and give examples of homeostasis that is occurring in the body. One is regulation of the body temperature. Two is regulation of the blood glucose level. Three is regulation of blood water level, and the fourth one is the regulation of blood pH level. Now let's talk about the temperature regulation that occurs in the body, how the body regulates its temperature. At the upper part here, we have heat, that means when the body temperature is hot, and we have cold, that means when the body temperature is low. And in between the heat and cold, we have a part we call hypothalamus. It is the hypothalamus that will detect when the body temperature is too high. It is the hypothalamus that will detect when the body temperature is too low. When the hypothalamus detects whether the body temperature is too high or too low, it will send signal to the following part. Now let's start when it is hot. When it is hot, the body temperature becomes too high. What will happen? The hypothalamus will send signal to the sweat gland. The sweat glands, they will produce more sweat. As it produces sweat, this sweat will move through the sweat duct to the outside of the body, and the body will use its own heat to evaporate the sweat away, thereby reducing the body temperature. It will also send signal to the hair follicles. It will cause the hair follicle to relax. That means to lie flat on the body surface, not to absorb any heat from the environment. And lastly, it will cause the blood vessel closer to the skin to become vasodilated. That means the blood vessels will become dilated, they become expand or open up, therefore more blood will flows in them. As the blood is flowing in them, heat will lost to the outside of the body, thereby reducing the temperature of the body to normal. And let's look at the other side when it is cold or when the body temperature falls below normal, what will happen? It will send signal to the sweat gland not to produce any sweat or to produce just a little amount of it. It will also send signals to the skeletal muscles to undergo involuntary contraction to produce heat. This will cause the body temperature to rise again. And next, it will cause the hair follicles to stand erect in order to absorb heat from the environment, thereby rising the body temperature again to normal. And lastly, the blood vessels will undergo what we call vasoconstriction. So the blood vessels closer to the surface of the skin will become constricted. That means they will become narrow. In that case, less amount of blood will pass through it. As less amount of blood passes through it, less amount of heat will be lost to the environment. And lastly, concerning homeostasis is the regulation of blood glucose level, how the body maintains its blood glucose level. So let's also observe this slide that we have here. When the blood glucose level is low, what will happen? When the blood glucose level is high, most often after eating, what the pancreas will do? The pancreas will secrete what we call insulin. This insulin will cause the cells of the liver to take up this excess glucose and store them in the form of what we call glycogen. Animals dey store their excess glucose in the form of glycogen, while plant dey store their excess glucose in the form of starch. And also the insulin will cause the body cells to take up the excess glucose and make use of it. The body cells will not take the excess glucose to store, they will take it and make use of it. It is the liver that will take up the excess glucose and store in the form of what we call glycogen. And let's look on the other hand, when the blood glucose level is low. When the blood glucose level is low, the pancreas will secrete another hormone called glucagon. This glucagon will cause the liver to release the excess glucose that was being stored in the form of glycogen into the bloodstream so that the blood glucose level will rise to normal again. And one thing you need to know, the regulation of the production of insulin and glucagon, it is being regulated by what we call somatostatin. Next we have is excretion in plants. And excretion in plant, it occurs mainly by transpiration. Transpiration is the loss of water in the form of water vapor through the stomata of the leaf. We have three types of transpiration. We have stomata transpiration, we have lenticular transpiration, and we have corticular transpiration. The most common one is the stomata transpiration. And we have some important of transpiration that we have to talk about. One, it leads to cooling, just like sweating leads to cooling. Number two, it transports nutrients. We have what we call transpirational pull that will cause water and other substances to be transported from the root to other parts of the plant. And lastly, it causes turgidity. It makes the plant to become firm. Next we have on the slide are the factors affecting transpiration. Some of these factors, when they increase, the rate of transpiration will increase. When they decrease, the rate of transpiration will decrease. One, temperature. When the temperature increases, the rate of transpiration will increase. When it decreases, the rate of transpiration will decrease. Humidity. If you can observe among all of them, humidity is the only one on this slide. When it decreases, the rate of transpiration increases, and when it increases, the rate of transpiration decreases. Humidity is the amount of water vapor in the air. So when the amount of water vapor in the air increases, transpiration decreases. When the amount of water vapor in the air decreases, transpiration increases. And we have wind, which is air in motion. When the speed of wind increases, transpiration increases. When it decreases, transpiration decreases. And we have light intensity. The higher the intensity of the light, the higher the rate of transpiration will be. The lower the intensity of the light, the lower the rate of transpiration will be. Because high intensity of light will cause the stomata to open. And lastly, we have soil moisture. As we have more water in the soil, more of it will be absorbed into the plant. And this can affect the normal functioning of the plant. So what will happen? The plants may tend to take them away, and this can happen mainly through the leaves of the plant. So the higher the soil moisture, the higher the rate of transpiration will be, and the lower the soil moisture, the lower the rate of transpiration will be. And lastly, we have guttation. Guttation is the excretion of excess water as droplet, not in the form of water vapor, as droplets through the part we call hydatodes. Now we have conditions that cause guttation to occur. In fact, guttation will only occur when transpiration fails to take out the excess water from the plant. Therefore, the conditions that causes guttation are high soil moisture, high humidity, low transpiration, and root pressure. And lastly, that we are to talk about under guttation is the mechanism of guttation, how it occurs. So it is caused by the root pressure, which forces water out through the hydatus. Let's say the plant has taken excess water, and this water has started to affect the normal functioning of the plant due to transpiration, which has failed to take out the excess water from the plant. So in that case, for the excess water not to affect the normal functioning of the plant will initiate a process we call guttation, which will cause the excess water to move out of the plant through a specialized structure we call hydatose in the form of droplets. In conclusion of what we have discussed, excretion is vital for removal of waste and homeostasis. The kidney is the main excretory organ of mammals, and plants excrete their waste through two processes, through transpiration and guttation.